Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Manthan on Awaz Aap Ki. Today we look at the grim economic scenario that is unnerving every Indian citizen for quite some time now. This is our first bilingual episode to facilitate a larger audience. हम चाहते थे कि आम आदमी के इस संघर्ष में पूर्व और दक्षिण भारत के लोग भी बढ़ चढ़ के हिस्सा लें और इस हिस्सेदारी में भाषा बाधक न बने। ऐसे कुछ अवसरों पर अंग्रेजी का प्रयोग अनिवार्य हो जाता है। आज हम देश की कठिन आर्थिक परिस्थिति पर चर्चा करेंगे। एक तरफ जहां खाद्यान्न के मूल्य आसमान को छू रहे हैं, हर गृहस्थ का बजट अस्त व्यस्त हो रहा है, वहीं दूसरी ओर रुपए का भाव गिरते गिरते प्रति डॉलर 70 तक पहुंच गया था, अब वापस 66-67 तक आ गया है। लगता है कि बस कल ही की बात है कि $1 45 रुपए के बराबर हुआ करता था। और हमारे कुछ बुजुर्ग श्रोता ऐसे भी होंगे जिनको वो जमाना भी याद होगा जबकि $1 1 रुपए के बराबर हुआ करता था। Let me now explain the title of today's episode, SONIANOMICS. Our Prime Minister Manmohan Singh began his career as a bureaucrat in 1971. Ever since, in the capacity of advisors and heads of different government bodies on economic affairs, his policies have swung from extreme socialism under Indira Gandhi to extreme relaxation of regulations under PV Narasimha Rao. When the UPA government was formed in 2004, we returned to being widely recognized as a welfare state all over again. Now, such a huge difference in policies cannot possibly come from one given economist. Hence the conclusion that anything that Dr. Manmohan Singh implements is basically not his idea, but that of his political boss at that point of time. As of now, that boss is obviously the UPA chairperson. कहा जा रहा है कि सोनिया जी ने सरकार के अर्थशास्त्रियों पर दबाव डाला कि वे ये सारे कानून बनाएं, जैसे कि शिक्षा अधिकार कानून की लागत सालाना 1.82 लाख करोड़ रुपए है। मनरेगा के बाबत करदाता हर वर्ष 1.83 करोड़ रुपए खर्च करते हैं और फूड सिक्योरिटी का जो अभी कानून बना है, इसके लिए हमारी और आपकी जेब से हर साल 1.27 लाख करोड़ निकल जाएंगे। हालांकि सरकार साथ ही साथ यह भी दावा कर रही है कि देश में आज इतने गरीब रहे नहीं। खैर, सरकार जब चादर से अधिक पैर पसारे तब आम आदमी का क्या हाल होता है, ये जानने के लिए आवाज आपकी की टीम ने आज सुबह गाजीपुर सब्जी मंडी का दौरा किया। आइए देखते हैं क्रेताओं और विक्रेताओं का हाल। वीडियो में कोई थोड़ी समस्या आ रही है। अब तक मुझे सुनकर अगर आपको लग रहा है कि यह मीडिया का माध्यम लोक हितकारी शासन व्यवस्था के खिलाफ है, तो मैं स्पष्ट कर दूं कि सवाल बस इतना ही है कि इन सेवाओं के लिए पैसे कहां से आएंगे। सोनिया जी ने संसद में कहा कि ऐसे कार्यों के लिए पर्याप्त धनराशि जुटानी होगी। कैसे जुटेगी, इस पर उन्होंने रोशनी नहीं डाली। वरना हमारा मानना है कि एक राष्ट्र या नेशन स्टेट, उसकी प्रकृति ही वामपंथी होती है, क्योंकि मुक्त बाजारवाद की चरम सीमा की अगर हम बात करें तो वहां तो देश के ही अस्तित्व का कोई औचित्य नहीं रहता, बल्कि हर व्यक्ति अपनी मर्जी का मालिक होता है। प्रश्न इतना है कि इन सेवा सुविधाओं के लिए पैसे कहां से आएंगे, खासकर तब जब कंपनियां बेहाल हैं, शेयर के भाव धड़ाधड़ गिर रहे हैं और रुपए की कीमत भी। लोक कल्याण के कार्य टैक्स अर्थात कर से होते हैं। जब व्यवसाय में मुनाफा ही नहीं होगा तो लोग टैक्स कहां से भरेंगे। अगर सरकार को पर्याप्त टैक्स न मिला तो इन सेवाओं के लिए फंड कहां से आएगा। तो इन तमाम विषयों पर चर्चा करने के लिए हमारे साथ आर्थिक मामलों के कई दिग्गज मौजूद हैं। We have with us Professor Arun Kumar from the School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Earlier this year, he had analyzed Finance Minister P. Chidambaram's union budget proposals on behalf of the Aam Aadmi Party. Before that, in January this year, he was invited by the said party to offer a vision for the Indian economy that the party is likely to incorporate in its policy papers. Professor Arun Kumar, before the other panelists join us, my question to you is, so what went wrong in the economic history of independent India? Protectionism, liberalization, or such welfare policies that did not have a sound funding mechanism? Or is it all due to international influence? Sir. Professor Arun Kumar.
Yeah, India has not had an indigenous policy framework ever since independence. We have followed the Western modernity path, which is the top-down path. So from 1947, we thought we would copy two paths of Western model. One was from the Soviet Union, which is the path of central planning, and the other from the West, which is the market economy. And that's why we followed the mixed economy model. It was neither socialist nor was it fully capitalist. It was a mix of the two. But that policy faced many problems, starting from the 60s itself, because of the drought and because of the planned holidays, and then we had the crisis in 1972-74 of very high prices. Then we followed the emergency, and then again the oil crisis of 1979-80, and again very high prices. And then we went to IMF. And the IMF imposed conditionalities in 1980. And then we again had the crisis in 1989-90 when the oil crisis came. And again we had to then go for the IMF and World Bank conditionalities. And those conditionalities said that we have to go for the complete market path. And therefore we followed the market path from 1990-91 onward. Now what has happened as a result is that there are extreme disparities that have been created in the Indian economy, where roughly 0.1% of the Indian population, which is the corporate sector, has cornered about 23% of the GDP of India, which is larger than the income of 14%, which is the income of the 50% who are still dependent on agriculture. So in this scenario, what has happened is various crises have come about, and that's why the government, to see that the social situation, the political situation does not deteriorate further, has gone in for these welfare schemes. So these welfare schemes, whether it's Manrega or whether it is the education policies or it is the other policies, are a response to the extreme inequality that is being created in India. And therefore, the safety net, these are only safety net. These are not the prime policies that should have been there. If we had generated enough employment, we would not have needed Manrega. If people had enough income to have education, we would not have needed Shiksha Abhiyan. So these are actually under compulsion that the government is having to go for these policies. Otherwise, the political and the social situation will deteriorate even further. Now, coming to the question of resources, our black economy is 50% of GDP. If this black economy had been wide, we would have got an extra 20% of GDP as taxes. Today, we are having only 15% of GDP as taxes. So this has become 35% of GDP. And then today, on education, for instance, we are spending only 3.8% of GDP on education, whereas we should be spending 6%. If we got this extra 20%, we can even go to 10%. We need money for, say, health, where we are spending only about 1% of GDP on health. We need to spend 3%. So if we had collected from the black economy this extra 20%, we would have had enough money for infrastructure like power, like roads, social infrastructure like education and health. So in other words, it is the black money which is floating around in the country, large amount of black income, roughly about 50 lakh crores of it is generated every year, and that could have provided an extra 20 lakh crores of taxes, which would have then helped in the economic growth. So the real problem is that we are not tackling the problem of the black economy, where the resources are there and they are being wasted in a very large way. So we don't have to increase taxes. We just need to bring the black economy into the mainstream, and then the government will have enough resources.
How do we do that? Professor, how do we do that?
You see,
how do we suck in the money from the black economy?
There are various ways that have been suggested in the literature. And for instance, why is the black economy proliferating and become 50% of GDP? It is because there's a nexus between the politician, the corrupt businessman, and the corrupt bureaucracy. It's the triad which operates this black economy, and that's why laws are systematically violated. And we see, for instance, in the Radia tapes, how the nexus gets formed when ministers have to be appointed, when licenses have to be given, when the bureaucrats, the politicians, and the corrupt businessmen, they all get together and they do it. So our investment model is based on crony capitalism, where if I have link with the right chief minister, then I can get coal block. If I have the link with the right minister, I can get mining leases, I can get SEZs, etc. So rather than have a transparent model based on investment, based on market conditions and
Let
procurement.
me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you, Professor. There is a difference. There are two kinds of political and economic scandals that have unfolded before us in the last few
Yes.
years. One type is where, let's say, 2G scam. In 2G scam, these bidders bribed the government functionaries. On the other hand, in the CWG scam, there was extravagance. Now, there is a difference between these two kinds of spending. If there is an extravagance, you can stop that, you can divert that money to welfare schemes. But when there are two different parties, none of them representative of the people, let's say a bribe giver and a bribe seeker, a contractor and a government functionary, they are exchanging money. How do you take that money out to divert to welfare schemes?
You see, the point is that when there are on various contracts, when there are cuts that are given, then actually there's a political and a bureaucratic system involved along with the thing. Now, to check these kind of things, what you need to have is accountability and transparency. If there's accountability and transparency in the system through right to information and through other mechanisms, then this would not happen. So in other words, the problem is political because these are the very people who are in the ruling classes, and they are the ones who will not put a check on themselves. So that's why, people like Prashant Bhushan has been talking about the judicial accountability, accountability of the police, accountability of the political system, accountability of the corporate sector, right? So in other words, when we introduce greater and greater accountability, we are able to check this. Secondly, you can also check some of this thing by going for, say, gross profit taxation on corporate tax. Okay? That's one mechanism by which a lot of expenses of the corporate sector, which are characterized as expenses, but really are means of siphoning out funds from the corporate sector, they will be checked. Similarly, if you go in for wealth taxation, then you bring in a lot of income, which is because a lot of Benami wealth is held, and that once you tap into the tax net, then a lot of income tax will also get collected. So in the literature, there are a large number of ways that have been suggested of how to control the black economy and bring this about 50 lakh crores into the tax net. Now, I'm not saying that immediately you'll be able to get 50 lakh crores into the tax net, but even if you're able to get 30% of it into the tax net in the coming 2 years, you'll have enough resources for education, etc. And when the job employment situation improves, then you would not need, all these schemes that are being given in as handouts.
Right. So what you're basically saying is we need a completely different governance model with a completely new economic setup, if I'm getting you right.
Yes, and transparency in the system and strengthening of democracy, because political accountability means strengthening democracy. So if we have a strong democracy, and that's where alternate parties are needed, and alternate parties need to have an alternate program, because the current set of parties are not going to do it. You can see, for instance, in Tamil Nadu, once DMK comes and then Anna DMK comes, both are involved and accuse each other. You go to the other extreme, Punjab,
Happening in every state. Right.
Congress comes and they accuse each other.
Right.
So the current parties are not going to do it.
Right. Our video is ready now. हमारी आवाज आपकी की टीम आज सुबह गाजीपुर सब्जी मंडी गई थी, वहां क्रेताओं और विक्रेताओं से बात की. आइए सुनते हैं उनका हाल.
नॉर्मल रेट हो गया बड़े से भी आम जो करंट माल पड़ेगा मंदा आएगा अब 3 दिन से माल पड़ेगी जब रेट बढ़ता है तो देखते हैं क्या प्रॉब्लम आती है रेट बढ़ता है तो सरकार की यहाँ से उसको हमारी मंडी से मंदा मिलेगा तो वो पहले रेट मिलता था वो
I think there is a problem with the audio quality of the video.
मेरा नाम संजीव है और हर सैटरडे मैं यहाँ पर सब्जी लेने आता हूँ। ये मंडी है गाजीपुर मंडी। यहाँ इसलिए आते हैं क्योंकि जो रेडी वाले जो रिटेल बेचने वाले हैं वो बहुत महंगी देते हैं कॉलोनी में, तो इसी रीजन से हमें मंडी में आना पड़ता है सस्ती सब्जी लेने। ये महंगी तो हो ही गई है, अब सब्जियां इतनी महंगी है, वो आम आदमी कैसे खाए उसे। आए दिन उसके रेट इतने ज्यादा बढ़ रहे हैं। अब प्याज ही ले लीजिए, उसके रेट 80+ चल रहे हैं, तो अब आम आदमी कैसे खाए। ये एग्जैक्ट रीजन तो नॉर्मल आदमी को नहीं पता चलेगा, बट जो समझ आता है वो यही है कि कहीं बारिश कभी कम होती है या ज्यादा हो जाती है तो रेट बढ़ जाते हैं। और एक मेन रीजन ये भी हो सकता है कि जो बड़े बड़े स्टॉकिस्ट होते हैं वो स्टॉक फिर जब रेट बढ़ते हैं तो मार्केट में रिलीज करते हैं, क्योंकि सप्लाई तो कभी भी नहीं रुकती। आप लेने आओ प्याज हमेशा मिलेगा, बस रेट ऊपर नीचे होते हैं। सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है, रेगुलेट होना चाहिए सब्जियां, प्लस प्रॉपर स्टॉकिंग होनी चाहिए। अगर ये बोलते हैं कि सब्जी खराब हो गई है तो प्रोडक्शन तो होती है लेकिन स्टॉक नहीं हो पा रहा है, तो ये एक रीजन हो सकता है।
Right, right. We have shortly going to join us. He teaches economics at Birla Institute of Management and Technology, and he has been with a past government. I'll introduce him in details later. From one of the anti-corruption and pro-systemic change parties, which Professor Arun Kumar said is the need of the hour, we have one such party. This party is representative with us, Mr. Sandeep Verma. He is an eminent member of the Lok Satta Party's National Steering Committee. From what we know of this party, he is expected to toe a liberal line. Mr. Sandeep Verma, welcome to the show. How would you react to the prescription suggested by Professor Arun Kumar? Mr. Sandeep Verma? I think we have lost him. We also have on our panel someone who is here to do what seems impossible at this stage. Do we have Mr. Sandeep Verma with us? Do we have Mr. Sandeep Verma? All right, all right. Let me introduce to the audience Mr. Rajiv Kumar. He is a product of the Delhi School of Economics. He is a budding tax and financial consultant, and he is here to do what seems impossible at this juncture. He is supposed to, he has said, defend the government. Mr. Rajiv Kumar, how do you respond to what Professor Arun Kumar says, that the entire economic model is wrong and that no present political party, whether the ruling or the opposition, has any intention whatsoever to correct the model, and this way we will only go on in this vicious cycle of government policies which are meant for welfare, then there will be no fund, another crisis, so on and so forth. How do you react to that? Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Tax and financial consultant, and he is here to do what seems impossible at this juncture. He is supposed to, he has said, defend the government. Mr. Rajiv Kumar, how do you respond to what Professor Arun Kumar says, that the entire economic model is wrong and that no present political party, whether the ruling or the opposition, has any intention whatsoever to correct the model, and this way we will only go on in this vicious cycle of government policies which are meant for welfare, then there will be no fund, another crisis, so on and so forth. How do you react to that?
Hello everyone on the panel.
Mr. Rajiv, tax and financial consultant.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I think there is an audio time lag.
Yes. Am I audible here?
Yes, yes, yes. You can hear you. Please go ahead. I think there is a problem with that. There is a time lag in the audio. So I'll introduce another panelist to you. I just spoke about Professor Jagdish Shettigar. He teaches economics at the Birla Institute of Management and Technology. Importantly, he was an economic advisor to former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. This year, he did not renew his BJP membership because he felt the chief opposition party was not playing the role of a genuine opposition sincerely. He is now a part of an all-India front of anti-corruption and pro-systemic change parties called the Save Democracy Front, led by Swadeshi thinker, ideologue and activist K.N. Govindacharya. Professor Jagdish Shettigar, if you have heard what Professor Arun Kumar said, how would you react to it?
No, as far as bringing out the black money, so there is no doubt the black money should be unearthed. But to blame that it is something wrong with the economic model, that I don't agree. Because my thinking is that whichever the system, whether it was the socialism or the market economy, the problem lies with the implementation. When any system is implemented honestly, then I don't think that there will be any problem. In the present system also, that is the economic reforms, there is nothing wrong with the economic model. The problem is at the implementation stage, that is because of the vested interest behind that. Because whichever the problem you look at, whether it is the inflation or the present, the problems in terms of the depreciation of the rupee, you can clearly see the influence of the vested interest. Now, how to control this vested interest? Or when he says that the black money should be unearthed, black money can be unearthed not by simply what he called the changing the law. It requires the systemic changes. Now, systemic changes in terms of certain economic laws. And so one of the major, the law is that your electoral reform. Unless you introduce the electoral reform, I don't think that it is possible to control the black money, because under the present electoral laws, it suits both donor as well as the donee to encourage the black money. Because under the system, the candidate cannot declare the exact expenditure, because if he declares the expenditure, right expenditure, his election will be declared as null and void. And if the donor declares that he has donated money to the certain candidate or the party, then the concerned, whoever is in the government, they will be after these companies or the business house or the businessman. So it suits both the donor as well as the donee to hide the money he takes or the gives. So that is why there is a pressure to create a black money. Now, when he has to give in the form of the cash or what we term as a black money, obviously, it's not out of law, it is under the pressure. And similarly, there is certain laws, like if one purchases the property, now the property has to get registered. Now, when you get registered a property, declaring the right value of the property. Now the purchaser has to pay the tax on that, and the seller has to pay the capital gains tax. So undervaluation of the property suits both the seller as well as the buyer. So it is the system needs to be changed, whether it is the case of the laws related to the registration of the property or the electoral laws, or there are so many economic laws which I would not like to go into detail. And apart from that, let us not forget the fact that today under the system, one can earn the black money and he can take out the black money from the country through the Hawala route and bring back that black money because your system facilitates that. Now, unless you change these laws, that is, what I meant is that your trading principle, trading laws relating to the trade, that is export-import rules, unless you control that, or unless you control the what you call the flow of the foreign institutional investment, under which there is a what you call the participatory node, where the sources of the investor is not declared. So, whether it is the case of
Professor Jagdish Shettigar, hasn't the money fallen drastically also because of this huge current account deficit? How do you address the trade imbalance situation?
No. See, this is again the other problem, because the current account deficit, see, there are, it is like, the cause and effect. Now, when you just mentioned about the current account deficit, now, as far as the current account deficits influence or the impact on the rate of exchange is concerned, on the one hand, your import has been going up, and you cannot entirely blame the government. I am not defending the government, but there are certain external factors also, like increase in the prices of the crude oil in the international market, and also increase in the gold import. This has been what we call the pushing the demand for the foreign currencies like the dollar. Now, as far as the supply of the foreign currency is concerned, now it has been adversely affected, mainly because of the withdrawal of the money by the investors, especially the foreign investors, and as far as the domestic investors are concerned, there is a capital flight from the country, because both the domestic investors
we have another panelist joining us now, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. He was curious about the title of this show, SONIANOMICS, and we introduced the topic before he joined us. I'll just briefly repeat to him what we said in the beginning, that Dr. Manmohan Singh began his career in 1971, and ever since, his policies have seen extreme swings from socialism to capitalism. Now, observers say that one given economist cannot have all these host of policies. So it suggests that at any given point of time, whatever his political boss says, he just says yes to that. That is the rationale behind the topic of discussion today, which is SONIANOMICS. If you can hear us, Rajiv Kumar, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can hear you very well.
What I would like to know from you is not a typical response that we hear from the mainstream media, from Congress spokesperson. We are eager to hear something refreshing from you. Yes, please.
Well, I am not representing the Congress party. I am also not an official member of the Congress party. What I intend to do here is defend the economy rather than defend the government of the day. It is just that the government of the day today is in the power, and we are discussing the economics today. Now, a lot of people would like to believe that this economic situation has happened only because of the fact that that there is this government of the day which is in the power. Now, that is not entirely true. We've had tough times.
The two things are not mutually exclusive.
We've had tough times in the economy in the past. Will you agree? Before 1990, 1991, we had a balance of payment crisis. We had to pledge our gold. By that time, I mean, Congress Party was not there in power. During the Asian economic crisis, it was the BJP which was in the power. In 2008, when Congress was actually in the power, while the whole world was going down, this government actually steered us through during difficult times. We did not let our growth dip during those times. There were no major job losses in India during those times. There were
but we are talking about the current situation, Rajiv. If you have
yes,
been
so
through
I'm
the
coming
recent,
to that.
I'd like to
I am
draw your
actually coming
attention
to
to
that.
a recent article published by the DNA newspaper. I'm not sure you've been
Right.
through it, and it quotes a cabinet minister who says that there is no option. You know, there was these cabinet meetings and so on, and the cabinet minister confided in the writer that when some ministers at the cabinet meeting objected to pursue schemes, all these welfare schemes, as the economy is on the downslide,
Right.
a helpless prime minister cut short the discussion by saying there is no option but to bite the bullet, as madam wants the food security bill to be passed and won't brook any delay. So now we have a right to education costing us 1.82 lakh crore yearly, MG Narega 1.83 crore yearly, and we have this Food Security Act which will cost us 1.27 lakh crores each year. So obviously there is a burden, and the irony is that on the one hand the government says that poverty has reduced to 22%. Why then do you need food security for 70% people?
Yeah. So
Yes, please, Rajiv.
yes. So I have a couple of points, so before I actually answer your question.
Sure.
One thing that positive that has happened because of the Aam Aadmi Party agitation. Actually, it was the Anna Azad agitation 2 years back. One positive thing that happened was that what it opened in terms of the minds and thoughts of the people was that we may not have uncorrupted people. We may not also have clean politicians all the time, but if we focus on systemic changes, if we look to bring in transparency in the overall functioning of the governance as well as the economy, you will actually see people being benefited by the thoughts of the benefit itself. Now, there is nothing wrong with, let's say, food security bill. I say that because there are tremendous amount of wastages that we incur every year. Why not distribute this food amongst the poor? I mean, I may actually sound like a socialist here, but my only challenge is that if we are able to bring in right kind of systemic changes, like the government is doing through Aadhaar, and bring in a mechanism where these surplus food is actually distributed at low cost to the people who have not been benefited by the trickle-down effect, we may just have the right kind of mix of production and distribution. This year, we are going to have.
Your points can be contested, but I would like Professor Arun Kumar to come back on the panel and react to you rather than me reacting to you. Professor Arun Kumar, what is your take particularly on the 3 welfare schemes announced by the government? You of course said that the economic model is wrong and we have to go round and round in this vicious cycle. But Rajiv Kumar sees virtue in all these welfare schemes. What is your take in it?
You know, as I said, in the last 23 years, we have created massive inequality in society. And as a result, employment generation has been very weak and underemployment has increased in the Indian economy. We still have a large amount of, malnourishment amongst women and children. Roughly 40% women, 40% children are malnourished. And there is a large amount of illiteracy and very poor education system in the country. And if you have malnourishment coupled with people who are not able to go beyond the 8th class in the education, as according to ACER reports, 8th class students have the skill levels of 5th class students and 5th class students have the skill level of 1st class students, these people
Right.
will be permanently poor in the next one generation. So in other words,
But
because you're not
Professor,
income generation of the
Professor,
people, so you have to have these
Professor,
schemes.
these
Therefore,
schemes are not working.
It's a
Professor,
concomitant inequality that this is happening.
Professor, these schemes are not working. I'll just give you an example of the recent National Sample Survey Organization data. You know, it was a study on the efficacy of unemployment went up 0.9 from 4.2% to 4.6%. And the overall youth unemployment rate in rural areas for the same period went up from 4% to 4.7%. So these schemes are obviously not working.
No, the point is not that. Point is, if you didn't have these schemes, your unemployment would be even higher. And the point is that you see, if you didn't have the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, then your illiteracy levels would be even higher. So in spite of these schemes, if the problems are there, that means you need to do more rather than less. Secondly, if you have corruption, and there's a lot of corruption in all these schemes, there's no doubt, but do you say that if there's corruption in 2G, we will not allow 2G? If you say that there's corruption in coal blocks, we will not allow coal blocks from now on? No, indeed not. You have to solve the problem of corruption. You have to solve the problem of poor delivery. But these schemes are the result of the fact that there's inadequate income generation in the bottom 70% of the population who are living at $1.25. They are really actually poor by any international standard or national standard. And that is why these things are there. So if your income generation at the bottom had been much more buoyant, you would not need these schemes at all. So my idea, as I said earlier, is that if you have a more equitable growth path rather than the inequitous growth path since 1991, then many of these schemes would not have been required.
All right, we are
And
now
I might
joined.
add here,
We are now
while we are
joined by
waiting, I
Lok
might add,
Satta Party. Rajiv, I'll come
Yeah.
back to you. Rajiv, I'll come back to you. Sandeep,
Okay.
you have been this exchange views of Professor Arun Kumar, Professor Jagdish Shettigar. What is the Lok Satta Party's line on the current economic scenario? Mr. Sandeep Verma. Mr. Sandeep, hear us? Mr. Sandeep Verma? Professor Jagdish Shettigar. Professor Jagdish Shettigar, are you with us? Yeah, I think we have got Sandeep Verma now. Can you hear me, Sandeep Verma?
Yeah, hi. I'm having some data connectivity issues, so I don't know how long I'll be on the call.
Okay, never mind, but we can hear your
Can
audio.
you hear me?
Can you repeat the question, please? All right, all right. Let's get back to Rajiv Kumar till the time we do not get the other panelists. Rajiv, yes, I just pointed out, I read out the latest NSSO data about unemployment, and Professor Arun Kumar says that it would have been worse if things were not there.
I got the question. I got the question,
Yes.
Surajit. Look,
Yes, yes.
You know, it is just like saying you do your doom, you don't do your doom. Your data is being looked upon in a very skewed manner. When there were no such policies.
It's not my data, it is the government data, it is NSSO
the
data.
way you're presenting it. The way you're presenting it, Surajit, I know you've not done the research. The way you're presenting it, you're presenting only one side of the story. When you say that when the kids start going to the school, they get educated, but they do not find adequate employment, and therefore this education is leading to more unemployment. Yeah. Now, when they were not educated, they were not making informed choices. You should be happy being a member of the Aam Aadmi Party. That now your policy.
Let me make a clarification here. This channel is not a mouthpiece of the Aam Aadmi Party. This is an independent channel.
I know.
There are some people who are members of that party here. We also have members of other parties on the panel, so that's not an issue.
Okay, well, yes. So I am saying is that your party, I mean Aam Aadmi Party's focus has been to educate the voter. Now this voter is actually being educated in a government school and go ahead and make an informed choice about his political right as well as his economic right. Now you can, but what the problem what you're trying to bring in is unemployability. Now I'll give you an example. What happened in Malaysia in the 80s when there was a lot of economic turmoil which was happening in Asia, and we had two giant countries, Korea as well as South Korea as well as China, rising up the economic ladder. We also had decent amount of growth coming from Japan. Malaysia, as a government, formed a land acquisition policy, which also was linked to the employability or enhancing the employability of the people who would lose their land. Now, the beauty of that policy was both these policies were interlinked, and which led to Malaysia being one of the manufacturing hub for IT sector. You know, most of the semiconductor industries went to companies like Malaysia to get their manufacture their stuff built. Now, if we are able to link all these policies, including on NREGS, your literacy policies, your policies of food security, people also say off the hand that if you start feeding the poor for free, they will never go out to work. Now we've seen in the case of in the case of Bangladesh.
Why can't you remove their poverty first? Why can't you remove their poverty and let them grow self-esteem about themselves, about the way they are leading their livelihood?
As I said, all these policies are viewed only in isolation. But if you collectively view it with the view that there is also systemic change and transparency happening, you will actually see the government being sidelined in the entire delivery mechanism. You
and let me dispel any myth. If the panelists are getting this idea that this channel is against welfare economics, it's not. Let me point to another direction. You know, how would you justify such policy bottlenecks that are a creation of neither the opposition nor the international markets? For instance, 70 highway projects worth 50,000 crores are held up due to soil mining curbs. Projects worth over rupees 7 lakh crore, which is equivalent to almost half the government spending in the current financial year, are held up in the absence of environmental and forest clearances. 215 projects spread across power, roads, ports, cement and steel, each with an estimated cost of rupees 250 crores and more, are caught in the red tape. So who else is responsible but the government?
I've got a small point. I've got a small point here, Surajit. I don't know if you're addressing this to me, but I'll tell you, in the past 10 days, this government has actually gone ahead and cleared a project worth 1,000 crore rupees on road development. This government also went ahead, is actually going to Supreme Court for a review petition on the ban on iron ore. The ban on iron ore itself was the sole reason why the steel industry is today suffering. We've had power crisis. This coal mining scam, the so-called coal mining scam, which has actually led to a non-functioning of various power plants as well as the cement factories. So, a lot of these things are not in the hands of government. A lot of these things are not in the hands of government.
Shettigar would like to come on that. Rajiv, just a minute. Professor Jagdish Shettigar wanted to come on that. Professor Shettigar, you heard Rajiv speaking. You were also once associated with the Bharatiya Janata Party, and you have not renewed its membership. How much would you blame the opposition for disrupting parliamentary proceedings? Because that is holding up many key legislations. Professor Shettigar.
देखिए, जहां तक नया पॉलिसी का सवाल है, ये सही बात है, जब पार्लियामेंट चलता नहीं है, उसको कारण जो भी है विरोध दल ही होगा, या अभी जो सेशन में इसमें विरोधी दल नहीं है, इसमें जिनका वो जिम्मेवारी था पार्लियामेंट चलाना, पार्लियामेंट्री अफेयर्स मिनिस्टर है, वो खुद ही वेल में जाके ना चलाने के किया। तो इसीलिए दोनों जिम्मेवारी, इसमें मैं विरोधी दल को भी जिम्मेवारी मानता हूं, इसी तरह से सत्तारूढ़ पक्ष दोनों जिम्मेवारी, क्योंकि ये तो एक तरह से मैच फिक्सिंग है। जब भी जो भ्रष्टाचार के विषय आता है, चाहे कोलगेट के विषय या 2G स्कैम का आता है, इसमें दोनों का हाथ है। इसीलिए
There is again a problem of the audio, I think. Professor Arun Kumar wanted to come in on that.
Very quickly, a response to Rajiv Kumar. Basically, our model of investment has been one based on crony capitalism, and that's why you see coal blocks being allotted to people who are known, 2G spectrum being allotted to people who are known to the right politicians, etc. So when the projects are stalling, not because Parliament is stalling, the projects keep stalling because the decision making is slowed down, because the politicians and the bureaucrats, they're not willing to take decisions. So
इसका एक असर ये होता है जब यहाँ
the brief, this thing is nothing to do with Parliament being stalled.
Yes, yes, Professor Jagdish Shettigar, you were saying something? I think we have lost that line. We have some viewers joining us now. We have Animesh Biswas. Animesh, what's your question? Animesh, can you hear us?
Surajit, can I make a small point on black money?
Yes, Rajiv, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Professor Arun Kumar, I agree with a lot of points that you've made here, sir. My only question on black money is that if this government has slightest of the will, it can actually help bring in the black money at these rates. In the past 3 months, the rupee has devalued by 20%. Now, if like it happened during the Resurgent India Bond or the BDIS scheme during the Chidambaram Manmohan Singh Dream Team, if we are able to bring in similar kind of a mechanism to invite the people who stashed away their black money, including the politicians and the bureaucrats as well as the businessmen, that so you've already gained in 20%. Nobody gives you 20% return in 3 months. And I can safely say that because I've been in the financial market for long enough to understand that. This is the right time for you to bring this money here, maybe even tax-free, make it white. You will not, your faces will not be disclosed. Ensure.
Rajiv, this is like a voluntary disclosure scheme. And we have already committed to the Supreme Court in 1997 that we will not bring any new voluntary disclosure scheme. And if you look at the Mauritius route, that's also a voluntary disclosure scheme because there's round tripping of capital. What capital you take out from the country, you bring it back to the Mauritius route or to the Singapore and other routes. So in other words, this voluntary disclosure scheme has been working. And as the CAG report on the 1997 voluntary disclosure scheme said, that you are making honest people into dishonest, because those who are honest and didn't take their money, they also start taking their money out. Secondly, the CAG report also said that the people have become habitual tax offenders because those who have been doing it are doing it even more now. So those who declared the money in the earlier 5 schemes also declared the money in the 6th scheme in larger amounts. So in other words, the voluntary
Professor Arun Kumar, there is another aspect to it. The government has been misleading us. Like since the time Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was the finance minister, we are being told that the double taxation avoidance agreement has a confidentiality clause. Now, for heaven's sake, all these DTAA agreements are in the public domain. No DTAA agreement whatsoever has any confidentiality clause that you cannot disclose the names of those who hold these huge chunks of black money. How do you react to that?
The second point about the DTAA is that DTAA is not about the black money, but it's about the white incomes. So double taxation avoidance agreement has nothing to do with black. It's all to do with your white incomes, and they would not be taxed in 2 sources. Similarly, the tax information exchange, the treaties that are being signed, also is about white incomes, not about black incomes. In other words, this government has not really taken very concrete steps to unearth the black income within the country, because only 20%
black
of
money करके
is brought, 80% are lying here. If you tackle it here, then you will be able to tackle it outside also. It's not easy.
Professor Jagdish Shettigar is rebutting, I think. Professor Shettigar, do we have Professor Shettigar with us? No. There is a question for you, Rajiv, from a young citizen of this country, Animesh Biswas. He has some audio linkage problems, so he has sent us the question in writing. He asks a simple question: have we lost the race to China, with China?
Well, I'll tell you, we've missed the manufacturing bus 3 times. One during the Asiad Games, second during the Commonwealth Games, and somewhere in between also. Yes, we have missed the manufacturing bus. But I'll also give you an example of TCS, the company today which also missed its bus during the just before the dot-com bubble, when the management of TCS had decided that they will not list on the NASDAQ. People said the TCS is going to be finished, it has missed the bus. Similarly, if I can bring that same analogy here, I think fall in UP gives us a lot of opportunity, combined with the various policies, probably the land acquisition law and the national manufacturing policy. If we are able to combine this and maybe even expedite the government decision making, and we will definitely need the support of the opposition, I think we can still look at countering China. Maybe start, one rising sector in manufacturing is shipyard building. India was a hub of shipyard breakages. Now people are turning towards India on shipyard building. We've got the know-how, we've got the technical capability. If we are able to start and build upon, and probably look at not China but Malaysia as our idol in terms of policy and implementation on manufacturing,
compromised competitor now.
We can regain our respect.
We have a compromised competitor now, not China but Malaysia. It's what? We should compete with Sri Lanka? Well, there is an audio problem. We are joined by a viewer now, Mr. Sandeep. Mr. Sandeep Bansal, if you can. Mr. Sandeep Bansal, what's your question, and to which panelist? Mr. Sandeep Bansal, if you can't hear us, you can still communicate through chat. Yes, Mr. Sandeep Bansal.
Yes. So I have 2 questions. First is to the Congress panelist. He's talking about manufacturing. Manufacturing as a policy was announced in 2004 by
Congress panelist.
Okay, whatever. It was announced in 2004. 2004, NMCC was formed by Mr. Manmohan Singh, and absolutely nothing has been done. In 2006, there was a report that came out which actually said that India would be a leading manufacturing hub by 2015. We are into 2013, approaching 2014, and absolutely nothing has happened. And my second question is to Professor Arun Kumar. He is talking like a socialist. Now, I just don't really understand, why do we need such big policies that have to be centralized? Why can't there be a federal structure where it is where the implementation is actually left to the states? What the problem with this model is that there is a model that is decided by the Babu sitting in the planning commission, who have no idea about the ground, and they're not leaving it to the and that is the precise.
We are running out of time. Yes, Professor Arun Kumar, I think you've got the question.
Yeah. Very quickly. I mean, there's nothing about socialism or anything. This is actually welfareism, which is a part of capitalism. When the welfare state takes care of everybody, that has nothing to do with socialism. Secondly, you can implement it in whatever way. In a decentralized way is better than in a centralized way. Now that's for you to choose. So I'm not saying that when you have to take care of the poor people, you have to take care of people who are falling below the safety net, then it has to be done in a centralized way. I'm only giving a rationale for why the new economic policy is leading to massive inequality, lack of employment generation, and as people have said, that the corporate sector, which gets 80% of the investment, is not generating jobs. So in other words, there's a jobless growth that is taking place in the Indian economy. And that's why you
Right.
have all these various
Professor
problems.
Jagdish Shettigar,
Nothing to socialism, it's complete capitalist welfare
is
state.
socialism to blame, or shall we come out of this endless debate between socialism and capitalism? Professor Jagdish Shettigar. प्रोफेसर, समाजवाद और पूंजीवाद के बीच ये झगड़ा कब तक चलेगा, कब सुलझेगा, और इसके बाहर भी कोई समाधान है क्या? हमारे साथ एक और व्यूअर जुड़े हुए हैं, रमेश मोहन श्रीवास्तव। अगर रमेश जी आप हमें सुन सकते हैं, रमेश जी आप हमें सुन सकते हैं, आपका सवाल क्या है?
Surajit,
let's get back to Professor Jagdish Shettigar. Professor Jagdish Shettigar, can you hear us? We don't have his audio. Yes, Rajiv.
yeah. So no, my point here is this debate between socialism and capitalism. I think to a certain extent is meaningless. You know, during the 2008 crisis, Citibank came up with an internal report which basically read 199. Now, even when you have a capitalist economy, a pure capitalist economy, the wealth is skewed towards only 1% of the population. The other 99% of the population are still squandering for the wealth. And that report got leaked. And Citibank had a lot of flack. So it is not only that socialism actually creates a problem. Now, there is nothing wrong. Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
continue.
So I'm saying there is absolutely nothing wrong if you have, if you've got socialist belief. The idea of it is that money has to come from somewhere. You need to end the bottlenecks. You need to ensure that there are transparent measures of delivery. You also need to ensure, just like it happens in justice, justice should not only be delivered, it should be appeared to be delivered. And that message has to go in sync with the governance also. We should not only look at and this functioning of Parliament has been an extremely painful for people like us who want the Parliament to function. There has been absolute zero discourse. I would like to
sorry,
draw your attention to
running out of time completely, so we would have to conclude now. We would like to apologize to the audience for this really poor audio and connectivity problem that we had today. To conclude with, we can only say that this debate is endless and there are as many views as there are people. And normally, one wouldn't like to end on a negative note. But what appears very clear is that right now, the people who are at the helm do not have a solution to come out of this problem. If they had, then probably we would have made slight improvements, which we can't see even at the horizon. Perhaps the reason lies, the solution lies somewhere in politics as much as economics. I would end on that note. Thank you very much. We have completely run out of time. You may, all our viewers may connect to us also through Twitter handle Awaz Aap Ki, AWAZAAPKI. That's our Twitter handle. And you may also write down your responses, send your responses to us at awazaapkinews@gmail.com. That is AWAZAAPKINEWS@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.